Welcome everyone to our practitioner series. Tonight we're welcoming Marianne Reif, long-term volunteer and EFT practitioner. Marianne has a PhD in education and she's offered wonderful support for our clients over the years. Welcome, Marianne, once again. Lovely to have you back here.
Glad to be here. All right. Do you want me to just go? I mean, okay, we'll just go from here.
You're welcome to start.
All right, sorry. Welcome to this is a basic introduction to EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique, or tapping. And I'm so glad you're here. I won't go into who I am, but I would love to again hear your name and maybe hear a little bit about what Jill and Maybell, is it Maybell or Maybella? And Patty have what you know about tapping, or just to say hi and put in what you might want to get out of this hour and a half that we have together. What a treat. So,
and again, folks can type into the chat anything they would like. But Marianne, maybe you want to just start off with talking about the basics of what emotional freedom technique is.
well, I can sure do that. So I guess if you already know what the basics are and I kind of overdo it, you just speak up and let me know. First, I want to say that in every session I do, I bring up the confidentiality. What happens here stays here. It's a safe place. And that's what you can expect, and that's what I expect always. I won't embarrass you. I won't ask questions that I already know the answer to. My job is to be your guide and supporter, and that's what I'll do while we're here. So confidentiality and a safe space for learning and for ourselves. This is a group. So often EFT, although it can be self-done, an individual, or you work with a practitioner one-on-one, but this is a group. So we're not going to go as deep into each issue. And because it's a basic, we're not going to go pretty deep into much of anything. It's more of a how-to kind of session. But in a group, we really get the energy, the borrowing benefits of everyone who's tapping. So that's the benefit you get from a group, even on Zoom. Even on Zoom, you can get those group benefits. So you don't have to worry about writing things down or getting questions asked. There'll always be time for that. Now, in the session, afterwards, there'll be some written stuff sent to you. So all you have to do is just be open to being here and engage in the session. Here's kind of what's going to happen that I think. First, I'm going to give a scintillating overview of what EFT is. Brief, but scintillating. And then I'll do a demo of tapping, how to do it, both on the face and body and the tapping points on your hand. Then I thought we could practice on something familiar, but not high stress. So you get to actually go through the systems with us and kind of see how it feels for you. Do it, kind of get your tapping legs going. Tapping legs, no, it's more like fingers, but and see how it feels to you. So Then I would like to share with you some ways of figuring out what to tap on. So it's great to have the tool, but if you come to a place where you feel stressed, but you're not quite sure what to tap on, we can talk about that too. Then I thought we would just gather from the group using the chat feature. What are some of the issues that are up for you right now? We're just going to stay at kind of the aggravation level. We're not going to go deep down into those emotions that hurt our heart, because it's a basic learn how to segment, but an aggravation in the chart, in the chat, and see as many as we can get so we can kind of get a big picture. With so few people, it's going to be pretty easy. And then we'll do a group tap along that so you get some more practice on that. Then another thing that really comes up is the question of what do I do if I just feel too overwhelmed to even think about figuring out what to tap on? I'm just too overwhelmed. So there's a few somatic ways that I found really, really helpful to get to a place where you can even thinking about figuring out what you want to tap on and then actually doing it to help yourself. Then depending on what continues to come up, I have a brief presentation on the issue of pain, which is always for us in this situation. So we'll see if that comes up and if it seems to fit, but we'll just kind of go with what you as a group wants to know about and wants to tap on. Then we'll close with some reflections, even more questions and answers. And we should be at about the time that we set for ourselves. What are your questions and how does that sound to you? Mary Bell is nodding, so that's good.
And just to clarify, Marianne, with when you say aggravation, are you meaning that it's like a physical symptom, or that there's like a emotional
It could be
feeling
either
that's
one.
coming up? So either
Yeah,
emotional or physical?
it could
Great.
be either one. It's all linked, our physical's just right there with it. So yeah, thanks for that.
So one of the questions was, by aggravation, do you mean symptoms that are most bothersome?
Yeah, well, absolutely. So just whatever is with you right now. What's aggravating you right now? Not future, not past, but right now, as you sit here, something you could notice and practice on and check out with yourself. Whoa, was that useful to me, that technique, or was it not? Without getting swamped in the issue itself. Oh, and we know that our own issues that swamp us and the ones that don't.
Another question that rings true to me, I don't have much energy. I would like to increase my energy.
That's wonderful. I've found tapping to be wonderful for that, for energy, it's energy. It is energy. And lack of energy is a block in our natural energy system. Yeah. Woohoo! That's good.
Next question is indecision, anxiety about every decision, lack of energy, and everything I do is exhausting.
Mm-hmm.
So again, another energy question, and the anxiety and indecision related to it.
It's hard to make decisions when you don't have the energy to breathe in and breathe out, right? Okay, good. Well, looks like we're getting a big picture thing for the second tapping already. So that's wonderful. Overwhelmed, exhausted.
The other comment was, even when I have the energy, I'm indecisive. And that can happen to me personally as well. That there's, it seems like there's too many choices.
Mhm. Which one do I pick first? Yeah. Good, good. Okay, I've written all those down. Too much. Cool. All right. So overview. This approach I'll share with you is called emotional freedom technique, or EFT tapping. And we call it tapping because it describes what we do. We physically tap, usually with 2 fingers, on acupressure points on the face and the body, stating an issue or a problem and a anchor phrase out loud. Tapping's uses those acupressure points, the ones that are similar to acupressure. We just don't use the needles. And it's a technique you can use to yourself. Another difference in this approach is that it is usually self-administered. You don't hire someone to do it for you and then come back to that person. You can do it to yourself. It's simply a self-regulation tool designed to calm the body's physiological system so you can be able to think more clearly, gain perspective, or just feel calmer. Like I said, I think probably to Maria and Nellie earlier, it's a way to calm down that stress response enough so we can see over it and figure out what to do, but not totally, because you want to keep the adrenaline of a stress response so you can take action. So that's why it's so wonderful. You can do it for yourself without permission. You don't have to give it permission. You don't have to do it right. You don't have to earn it or pay for it through being a good person. It's simply energy that you can do for yourself, this technique. So just a teeny word about the amazing research that's being done, because it's not well known. Tapping is not well known, but the research is surging and it's amazing. And it deals with the brain and your amygdala and the hippocampus. It deactivates that part of the amygdala that revs up the stress response, that stress center in the brain, and the hippocampus, that memory center in the brain. And recent research into the vagal nerve improvement has also been attributed to work with meridian tapping. It's been significantly shown to lower cortisol levels, which is the stress hormone. And research on gene expression indicates that EFT has the ability to downregulate genes associated with that stress response and upregulate the immune response and improve immune functioning reaction. Who couldn't use that? And if you'd like to read more about the research, because I could go on and on, because I love talking about it, I suggest a book called The Science Behind Tapping, and it's by Dr. Peter Stapleton. This is about you. It's about powerful self-care for you, where no permission is needed, like I said. And I'm so grateful and honored to be able to bring it to you. Let me demonstrate it. The typical setup statement is what we start with. On the side of either hand, there's a pressure point. So you do a setup statement 3 times. You state what the problem is, and then you state an anchor or a reminder phrase, sometimes it's called. So you say, even though I feel overwhelmed and anxious, I love and accept myself totally and completely. That's set up for 3 times. Even though I feel anxious and overwhelmed, I love and accept myself. This allows you to focus on what's going on. Tell your system, this is what I'm working on right now. It provides enough clarity to your system so that we can reboot and have it be something else. You could say any other thing for the reminder phrase at the end. You could change love and accept yourself, because sometimes that's hard for people to say initially. You could say things like this: even though I feel anxious and upset, I'm open to the possibility of change. Or you could say, right now, right here, I'm safe. Or you could say, I want to love and accept myself. Or I completely accept who I am right now. You could say, I choose to be open to the process. I'm taking charge right now. I'm still a good person. You could say all those things as a reminder phrase or an anchor that makes sense to you and that speaks to your system. You could say, even though I feel stressed and anxious, you could say, I know that's not 100% of how I feel. Or you could say, that's not always how I respond if you're tapping about something you did, or that's okay for right now. So that's the setup. I do it 3 times with each time through each sequence. And then here are the points. Right on the side of your eye, either eye, tap with 2 fingers a couple of times. And you say, I just feel overwhelmed. Then on the side of the eye, repeat it again. I just feel so anxious and overwhelmed. Under the eye, either eye or both. If you're feeling really anxious, just do both. It's another point. Under the nose, don't worry about getting it right. I feel anxious and overwhelmed. Repeat it. Under the lip, I feel anxious and overwhelmed. Right under the collarbone. Remember when we used to say, it's it, that's it. I feel anxious and overwhelmed. Under the arm, right on the bra line when we used to wear bras, I feel anxious and overwhelmed. On the top of the head, all the points come together. I feel anxious and overwhelmed. That's one sequence through on the body points, on the body parts. Now, 2 things I want to share in this demo. Sometimes it's really helpful when you have an issue to, before you start tapping, to say, how big is this for me on a scale of 0 to 10, with 0 being not at all, I'm fine, and 10 being it's the absolute worst that it could get. In fact, it's probably a 20. So where on that line, and just kind of think that or write it down. And then after you tap, you can check back in with yourself in that check-in time. See if anything comes up, comes to you. You can also check in on that number. Did it go up? Did it go down? Did it stay the same? What kind of movement in the energy was there? If it's still staying the same for you, well, you might want to go through it again. And this time you would use the word still. Even though I still feel anxious and upset, I love and accept myself, or I'm ready to bring some joy to this, or whatever your anchor phrase is, 3 times, and then go through it again. I still feel upset. I'm still feeling anxious. I'm still upset. One thing Nellie and Maria reminded me of, and it's so common for people to ask, why do we use the negative points although we have a negative and an anchor, why when we tap on the points do we use the negative? I don't call emotions negative, but I'm using that word because it's common and it feels like it's negative. We simply are telling the system, this is what we're focusing on. We're giving it enough attention so that we can reboot it with tapping and change. Because we don't want to frost a rotten cake or put an air freshener when there's still kind of a smell of garbage in what we're dealing with. We want to state it, accept it, and tap on it. It cannot implant negativity into your system. It's a simple way of stimulating energy, which is neither negative or positive in your system. So if you have any other questions like that, please feel free to ask me that. Maria reminded me. There's also key meridian points in your hand. So if you're in a situation where you don't want to start, although I tap in the car, I don't care. But if you're not wanting to go full-fledged on the body or the torso, use the hand points, and I'll show you how to do that too. On the hand points, you start right here between these 2 fingers. It's on either hand. It's called the gamut point, and that's where you do your setup. Even though I have such a pain, an achy old pain in my collarbone, it hurts. I'm ready to bring some healing to that. Even though my collarbone is really achy, it feels like a grip or something, I'm ready to bring some healing to that. Even though I feel that ache in my collarbone, I'm ready to bring some healing to that. So that's your setup on the gamut point. Remember, you can also add your numbers. So then you start with your thumb. You can tap it, but I always just tell people, just squeeze it. As you say, it just aches, my collarbone aches, and it just hurts. This ache in my collarbone. This ache in my collarbone. This ache in my collarbone. Just, I'm doing each finger. This ache in my collarbone. You don't have to do the ring finger. You already hit it with the tapping, but I do it anyway. And then the heart governor is where you end up. This ache in my collarbone. So that you can do that pretty well under the table or out of sight. And it's still hitting your meridian points that'll stimulate and help your energy flow system. Yeah, good. Thank you, Marie, for reminding me again. So that is kind of an overview of, or a demo of the points. Do you have any questions so far?
And again, people can either type it into the chat if you have a question, or you can unmute yourself and just ask.
If something's very severe, how many times do you have to go through that cycle? If something's bothering you to a really extreme level.
If it's really extreme, you know, Maria, I always say work with a practitioner. But if you're doing it yourself and you just feel like this is not getting any better, it's not, the numbers aren't going down, I don't feel any better. So that you can, first, to answer your question, there's no set time to go down, that you have to do it to go down. Usually 3 or 4 times something will break. And if it doesn't, you can ask yourself, or you might not be tapping on the core issue or the smaller part. It might be something else. It might be something else. And you ask yourself, well, if it's not this, what else could it be? What else could it be if this isn't getting better? Or you can ask yourself, do I need this in some way? Is it helping me in some way? And just kind of dare to think that. What would it be like if I didn't have that? So those are 2 things you can ask yourself. You can also, if you're stuck and it's an emotional thing, check your body and see if you feel it anywhere particularly in your body. So instead of tapping on an emotional, I feel, tap on something, or I feel emotionally, tap on something in your body and try to describe that. Yeah, does that?
That makes sense. Thank you. I just had a question come in. Just want to clarify. We stated the anchor first, then we tapped stating the problem, aka the negative. So this is someone who wants you to clarify what do you state first?
Okay, thank you. You state the problem first in the anchor. So even though I had my shoulder really hurts, that's the problem. I'm ready to bring some healing to this, is the anchor. Yeah. And then
Thank you.
restate the problem at each point. Like, hello, system, it's really hurting me. I'm really hurting. Hello. Yeah, you just repeat it each time. Yeah.
And I think this person needs further clarification because they're saying, I thought we tapped stating the negative. So they're not understanding the sequence.
Okay. How about, I wonder if it would help if we tapped as a group on something. Yeah. And then just kind of do it. And then if we're still having questions, and is it the phone person? It might be difficult. It might be
This is
that you're not seeing what I'm doing. Yeah.
actually the person says, okay, I get it. State the problem, then the anchor.
Okay.
Then when we tap the points, we just state the problem.
That's correct. Okay. Smart. Okay. I wondered if it might be helpful to tap on something familiar. And then I had a brilliant idea. How about tapping on what it feels like to come to a Zoom like this, to try something totally new that you don't even know who this person is or what really the technique is, and you have questions and you don't know what's going to happen. That is guaranteed to bring up stress in us. And so we could tap on that and then see if it fluctuates or impacts our energy one way or another using this system. And that's what I would like to do if, okay, yeah.
Could we include the brain fog that comes along with this type of chronic illness in that tapping session?
No. And the reason is we would be tapping on I see what you're asking. You're saying, what if I get brain fog when I go to something new? Or what?
Yeah, when I'm trying something new, I'm trying to follow instructions. It's difficult when someone has brain fog
I
with
see.
Lyme,
Mhm.
or another chronic illness. It's
Okay.
difficult for them to follow instructions, difficult for myself to follow new instructions.
Okay.
So
Okay.
tapping on the confusion that comes along with the anxiety.
Mhm. Yes, I think we can do that. And what I'll ask then, it's important to refine as much as we can down to something specific. And you're helping us get more specific. So if y'all could just tap into the or type into the chat or say out when you come to a new space or when you came to this new space, what were some things that came up for you? For me in a new space, something it might be like, oh, I'm going to make a fool of myself. I hope I don't, but I might. Or I won't know everybody. I won't know what to do, things like that. So if I get a few more things like Maria says, brain fog and worried about following instructions, what else is stressful about a new situation? And the reason I ask is the more we can use your or our own words in the tapping sequence, the more our systems will really get it and be able to reboot and say, well, we don't have to do that. We can do something totally different, like be happy. So anything else? So far I have brain fog and I'm afraid of making a fool of myself.
One can also be concerned that I'm in too much pain to pay attention.
Okay, thanks. That's certainly true. So that's a good bunch of stuff to start with. So we're gonna tap on that. So I'll just ask you right before we do, check in with yourself just right now in this moment of doing something new. What's your level of aggravation about that or worry or whatever emotion it is? Just is it 0? Not worried, I'm good. Or I think I might have to leave. Just write that down. You can use it as a kind of a baseline after we finish. The other thing I would ask is if anyone has a favorite anchor, or if you would just like for me to think one up and we'll practice it. since we're using the chat, how about I'll just think one up and we'll just go
I was
from
gonna
there.
say, Marianne, why don't you come up with the anchor for us? Because
I will.
I think that's still kind of new. Trying to figure out that piece of it is something that I know I kind of stumble on sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and we're going to talk about that if we get to it. So, yeah. How about something like, and we're not tapping yet, you got your number, but how about something like, even though I feel nervous about coming into this new situation, I bring my best self to this experience. You know, even though I'm afraid I'll have brain fog or somebody will make fun of me, I bring my best self to this experience no matter what. Do it that way. Okay. All right. So even though, and I say it and you say it, just say it out loud. It keeps you focused. Even though I'm anxious about this new session. Okay. Are you saying it?
We're all
Un-
muted. We're all muted here.
Unmute somebody. 'Cause
Maybe Maria, would you unmute yourself as well, and maybe the two of us can be the echo here.
Yeah.
I'm saying it,
It-
by the way, even though I'm muted.
Oh,
Great.
good.
Thank you,
All right.
Patty.
You can unmute
Thank you.
yourself. It just saying it out loud just keeps you focused. You don't have to, but we drift. We drift. So this helps keep us focused, even though I'm anxious about this new adventure.
Even
Even
though I'm
though
anxious
about this new
adventure,
adventure,
I bring my best self to this.
I
I
bring my best self
self
to
to
this.
this.
Even though I'm worried I might have brain fog or I have too much pain.
Even though I'm worried that I might have too much brain fog
or
or too
pain,
much pain,
I bring my best self to this.
I bring
I
my
bring my
best
best self to this.
Even though I'm afraid I can't get all the instructions. This is so new for me.
Even
though
though
I'm worried
I-
that I can't
that
get
I
all
can't
the
the
instructions.
instructions,
This is so
this is
new to
all
me.
new to me.
I bring my best self to this.
I bring
I
my
bring my
best
best
self
self
to
to
this.
this.
So just watch out. Here we go. On the eyebrow. I'm nervous about this.
I'm nervous about this.
I don't know what's going to happen.
I don't
I
know
don't
what's
know
gonna
what's going to
happen.
happen.
I don't know if I can follow instructions.
I don't know
I
if
don't
I
know
can
if I can
follow
follow
instructions.
instructions.
Under eye. I'm nervous to be here.
I'm nervous
to be here.
Maybe I'll have too much pain to pay attention.
Maybe I'll
Maybe
have
I'll
too
have
much
too
pain
much
to pay
pain to pay
attention.
attention.
Under the nose. Maybe I'll have brain fog.
Maybe I'll have brain fog.
fog.
Under the lip. I don't know what's going to happen.
I don't
I
know
don't
what's
know
gonna
what's
happen.
gonna happen.
My collarbone. I don't know what's going to happen.
I don't
I
know
don't
what's
know
gonna
what's gonna
happen.
happen.
It makes me nervous.
Makes
It
nervous.
makes me nervous.
Oh, deep breath. Under the arm. I'm nervous being here.
I'm nervous being here.
Being here.
What if I don't follow instructions?
What if I
What if
don't
I
follow
don't follow
instructions?
When I'm in
instructions?
so much pain, maybe it's too much.
I'm in so
I'm in
much
so much
pain. Maybe
pain.
it's
Maybe
too
it's too
much.
much.
On top of the head. I don't know what's going to happen here.
I
I
don't
don't
know
know
what's
what's
gonna
gonna
happen
happen
here.
here.
It makes me nervous.
That makes me
Makes me
nervous.
nervous.
Just see what comes up for you.
There is a noticeable shift in energy for me.
Great. Tell about that if you want to. Your numbers shifted a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
My
Mhm.
numbers weren't too high today, and now I feel really relaxed, like sleepy relaxed.
Yeah.
I find that giving validation to what's going on instead of denying it, it's really good because as you process, go from one point to the other, you're still validating each point. And
Mhm.
it went from, and I think it went from one state, and then what is another one that could come up to the next one, and then the next one, and the next one. So it gave it recognition
Mhm.
to each feeling and emotions that was happening.
What a great way to put it. Recognition. Yeah. Recognition. Every cell of our body is working for our best, but sometimes we just don't give it recognition. And that's a wonderful way to put it. Awesome. Yeah. Sometimes you'll get a thought. Sometimes you'll get an emotion or a feeling. Sometimes you'll get a memory like, oh, that reminds me of the time I was in the 3rd grade and I had to stand up in front of, I mean, you never know what's going to happen once things kind of get cleared away and you can see it is. But just one more point about recognition. It's a way of telling your system, whatever you're feeling, for crying out loud, that's okay. That makes sense that you would feel that way. It's such a relief. It makes sense that you would feel stressed, and you can bring it down and take action without taking the burden of being overwhelmed. It's wonderful. Anything else you want to say?
We have a chat that says, I actually got a bit of an aggravation saying the word anxious so much made me feel a bit bad.
So that's wonderful feedback. So then just don't say anxious. If when you're doing it yourself, so because I'm making up words for you. Yeah. Another because the words won't make you feel bad. That's there. And that's information for you. So kind of not welcome it, but you really had the courage to notice it, that you felt bad, and to say that. So when that happens to you, you could tap on that. You could tap on when I say I'm anxious, I feel bad and I don't know why. And I want to bring some healing to that, or I choose to feel what? I choose to feel a different way. Does that make sense? So whatever comes up for you is important to notice. It's not that you're doing it wrong or you have to change. It's just information.
So this person said, but I do feel anxious, but it was just too much to keep on saying it. How can I still work on the problem if I can't use the strongest word?
Mm-hmm. So here's something you can do. If it feels like just too burdensome and too strong, like you say, to say anxious. But if anxious is the word that you really feel, and it's not like another word or out of sorts, or you can't find another word that or that describes it. Two things you can do. You could tap on the anxiety and describe it as a visual or as a color of different things, but that's more if you work with a practitioner. But if you are by yourself and you feel anxious, you can do this. You can say, even though I feel anxious, I feel so anxious, and I can't seem to continue, or whatever you just said. I've lost the words. I'm sorry.
Anxious was the word.
Yeah. That's not all I am. So when you think that's not all I am, think about you being a whole 100%. And are you 100% anxious, or is there a glimmer of a 2% or 10%, or what is it? And then tap on that. Even though I feel anxious and it's really high, 98%, I'm shining at 2% where I'm not anxious and I'm ready to change this, or something like that. Does that make sense? So we're never 100%, although it sometimes feels like we are. So sometimes that would help, that kind of feeling.
And I think it's important to remind people that if it's that strong, Marianne is available for appointments to work one-on-one with you.
Mhm. It is. I'm going to skip around though because of that and say there's some ways to kind of bring down the anxious or the feelings if they get too high. So this is a good example, and thank you so much for having the courage in this group to share that, to help us all if we come to this situation. So there's a few things that we can do. One is from somatic breath work, very simple. You can do it with me if you want to. It's just breathe in as deeply as you want and hold for 3 heartbeats. Breathe in and breathe out. Deeply. Breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. And that usually clears some of the fog of overwhelm. And if it doesn't, here's another thing you can try. Just try being okay for 15 seconds. Just 15 seconds. The world's not going to end. Just closing our eyes for 15 seconds. Stuff comes in and goes out. That's whatever. 15 seconds. So let's do that. Close your eyes. 15 seconds. I'll count. Was there a lot of stuff going on? Woo! It's 15 seconds of just allowing yourself to be floating in the moment. It's hard. But what a relief if you can do it. And here's the third one. They're getting a little more physical. The third one is just a simple mantra. You're feeling overwhelmed, it's too overwhelmed, you can't think what to even think. Just take a deep breath. Find the heart governor and say this. I bless myself. I release myself. I forgive myself. I am myself. So I've found that one of those three things may speak to your own personality as far as calming down enough to get on to the work that you want to do. If it doesn't, pick up the phone and call somebody. And thank you for those wonderful questions.
I did have a response from a client, from one of the attendees who said that they turned up their heat, had a quick snack, and felt better, and reflected on that and said, so could environment, internal and external, also affect the ability to do the technique to the optimum ability?
I think you're absolutely right, person. I think you're absolutely right. When you do tap, even in the basic that we're doing right now, the information session, but when you do tap, find a place where you're going to do it. Get yourself some water because you'll get thirsty. It'll be okay if you feel tired. I know many people have said that they feel exhausted now, low energy. Feeling exhausted and low energy is different from feeling the energy of being tired from the energy. It's two different things, so don't worry about it. You can be, it says almost, we should invent a different word. It's, you'll yawn maybe when you're tapping, or feel kind of like, oh, I could take a nap. Some people feel really energized. Some people just feel like, I need to take a nap because I haven't been sleeping or haven't been relaxing. And that's what your system is telling you to do. Great. Yeah, good heat and food and environment. What's smart? And do what you need to do to feel better.
And Marianne, just what you were saying about like yawning in particular, is it can be very much like a emotional, a very somatic like release of energy thing, or like
Yes.
emotions that have been held in the body and can be released. So it sounds like what you're talking about is that there is releasing that gets to happen from doing tapping, that like things that we've kind of got pent up inside of us that can be moved when you do tapping. Does that sound right?
That's absolutely spot on. That's absolutely what happens. Yeah. And when we have stress responses, what happens to that stress? Where does it go if we don't release it? It goes into our system. It goes into our organs. It goes into our headaches. Have you ever seen an animal, a dog especially, if they get stressed or somebody steps on their foot, they immediately shake. Just their whole body. They just shake and they're over it. We don't shake. The closest we get is a yawn to that physical relaxation, or a darn good cry. If you've ever had just one of those crying rags to where you're just exhausted, you're released. Yeah. So Nellie, that's exactly what I also believe to happen. Yeah. So stepping back to another point that I wanted to kind of share with you is figuring out what to tap on. So it can be kind of hard to figure that out. Think of a big issue you have as one of those Jenga games. You remember those from Jenga games? They're flat little pieces, different ways, and yeah, exactly. So that's the whole big issue. And so, but if you tried to, keep tapping on the top of that Jenga game, it just stays jinged until you start. But if you pull out little pieces, I only got to 3 every time, and then mine just fell down. It's the same with any issue that we have. They all have aspects. Now, if we can get some of the aspects, big ones or little ones, it'll come down. You don't have to get everyone. You don't have to totally rid yourself of everything. It'll just release the whole thing. So when you're trying to figure out what to do and you get a kind of a big picture, this is when you do it for yourself of it. You can name it like, I feel so aggravated at that. I'm so mad at that person. That's the big picture. So what are the smaller pieces? What made you mad? What specifically did they say? How did it feel in my body? What does it remind me of? What did, all the little, and then just pick one. Pick pick maybe what it reminded me of. And that's what you tap on. And so there's some good visuals. There's a tapping tree you can get and put the big issue in the middle as the trunk and use the branches as different emotional reactions, symptoms, and feelings. And then just pick one off that tree, and that's what you tap on, and pick another one, and then pick another one, so you don't feel so overwhelmed by the whole big issue. Another way to do it is to have your big issue in the middle, like I feel so stupid when I make that mistake over and over again. And I just did it again in that meeting. So that's my big issue. Then get a piece of paper and just write that down. That's I humiliated myself again. Now, on one side of the issue, write down, what did you do? What did you feel? What did you think? So what did you feel? Heart. What did you think? Head. What did you do? Actions. Write as many of them down as you can. And on the other side, write, what would you rather choose to do? What would you rather choose to think? What would you rather choose to feel? Then you can tap on one thing from this side. Well, one thing I did was I just ran and I just went in the bathroom and I had a cry. What I would have chosen to do is I just let that slide and went on, or something like that. So even though I ran away when that happened to me, I choose to be brave and go on with my presentation. So you got your what happened and an anchor. So that's also a way to do it. Another good way is to call someone you know who knows how to do tapping and have them help you pick it apart and do it. Yeah. If it's a, go ahead.
There's a question, if I can interrupt.
Absolutely.
What is the point on the side of the hand called?
Side of the hand.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
And these are just the meridian tapping points, but they're different. Maybe they were asking me what that acupressure point is. The side of the hand,
Yes.
right? The side of the hand is the small intestine meridian. Yeah. I have to get my list because I can't remember them all, but the eyebrows, the bladder, gallbladder. Under the eye is the stomach. Under the nose and chin is a governing and a central vessel. These are the big ones that run all through the body. It's a kidney meridian. There's also one we don't use, but right under the nipple, which we can never get, but that's your liver. We don't use that in tapping, but that's a liver meridian. On the fingers, this is the thumb, is the lungs. The thumb is the lung meridian. Heart meridian is the baby finger. Middle finger is heart protector. Index is the large intestine. So those are how they relate to. I'm pretty sure I got them all right.
There was
if-
one more question. It said the anchor point in the middle of the wrist on the anterior side was the governor meridian.
Heart governor. Yeah.
And do you have a handout that we can share that does show these points?
I do. I'll bring it, I'll send it to you. It looks like this. It's the, I call it my naked man one, but, and then on the back, I've kind of listed which ones those are.
Perfect.
So just so people would know how it does connect to acupressure and acupuncture in some way.
Wonderful. So we will send out an email with different some different information about Marianne and include some handouts for you to have after this presentation.
Yep, that would be great. So then the final, I can also send you the tapping tree if you would like. I have some instructions on that.
That would be great to include. Thank you.
Okay, good. If people would like that, I can do that. No, I think just as before we end, the questions are all really good and hitting a lot of the points, but there were some questions about feeling tired and low energy, and I wonder if people wanted to maybe tap on that. Right, okay, I see a shaking of the head, okay. Yeah. So when you get your big picture, like low energy, you got it. So try to think about, and maybe put in the chat if you can stand to do that. Like, I feel low energy. I don't have enough energy really to do anything. So give me some descriptors, what that feels like in your body, what it feels like in your emotions, and what it feels like in your brain to be low energy. And we'll use those descriptive words, those power words, to kind of tell your body, I get you. Oh, I know that's how you feel. And for now, it's okay. We're going to bring some up. We're going to go up from here.
Well, one word can be used: exhausted, fatigued.
Exhausted, fatigued,
Heavy.
Somebody else say something?
heavy. Heavy,
Foggy.
foggy. Okay.
Sluggish.
Sluggish. And so now, what would it feel like to not feel like that? What would you want to choose into? Like, even though I feel heavy and foggy, I choose to move into what? What would that be?
Being
Buoyant.
alert. Oh. Being alert.
Alertness,
Buoyant.
buoyant,
Feeling light.
feeling light,
I have a second person saying ease of motion, light.
ease of motion, and light.
And the oomph to do whatever needs to be done. Oof, you know.
Do it. I do what needs to be done. And so, see, we've made those two lists, and I'll try to blend them, but you could just pick one. You could pick, I'm feeling so heavy and foggy, but I'm open to feeling light and buoyant. Just that all the way through once. And then choose it, check in with yourself, then choose another one. I feel low energy. I'm open, or I'm ready to feel energized so I can do what needs to be done. Do you see? So it doesn't have to be all of them at once. You can just choose the duals. But I'll try to blend them all so you can see which ones you kind of like. But we'll do repetitive. Maybe the anchor might be, I choose to move into feeling light and buoyant. Without, that's what it. So, Nellie, I love you. That's so great. So, check in with your numbers 0 to 10. I know it's a drag, but sometimes it switches so little you might not notice it. 0 to 10, how exhausted are you feeling right now? And just write that number down so you'll have a baseline. And take a deep breath with me. Even though I feel low energy and heavy, I choose to move into light and buoyancy. Even though I feel sluggish and heavy, I choose to move into the light and have energy to do what needs to be done. Even though I feel exhausted and sluggish, I choose to change that and move into the light. I feel so exhausted. Eyebrow. Side of the eye. I'm just feeling heavy. Under the eye, I feel sluggish. Under the nose, I don't have any energy to do what needs to be done. Under the lip, I feel heavy and sluggish. Collarbone, I feel so foggy and heavy. Under the arm, I feel so exhausted all the time. Top of the head, I feel so low energy. Deep breath. See what comes up for you. You're laughing, Maribel. Tell me what's going on.
I
I
find
couldn't
this
stop.
very useful. And because I find it useful, because you name it, but you don't stay there, you also give an alternative. And gradually you just work it out so it's less and less and less.
Mhm.
But it's good tapping the different parts. It energizes. So
Mhm.
I was a 7 to start. I think I'm about in a 3 to a 2.
Great. That's great. Thank you.
It made me yawn.
Woo! If you yawn, you know the energy is moving. Yeah. If you're feeling thirsty a little bit right now, you know you're moving energy. Yeah. You know your system is taking care of you and doing that. Anything else from the chat that people want to say?
It says, it felt less exhausting when I only tapped one side for those points that are bilateral.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. So when that wonderful, she is figuring out what works for her body. I work with a couple of people that one of the points just is painful for them. We just don't do it. We just don't use that point. There's nothing really, it's just major points. So, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. There's one thing I want to say about exhaustion and Lyme disease and pain. as a reminder that it may be your body telling you to rest. So if you just rest, because it's so hard to rest when it takes such a long time and it takes so much out of us, and there's pain, so we can't rest, but we need to rest. So get better, but we can't because they're pain. So you get into that loop. Maybe tapping can help bring down some of the looping, but always have your ear out for what your body is saying. That is this a need to rest? Is this a need to hibernate? Because there'll be a message there for you to.
So we're getting towards the end of our
Right.
session, and I'd like to open the floor. If anyone has questions, you can either text them, or if you'd like to stay online and talk to Marianne after we finish recording, she's available to take anybody's questions at that point as well.
That's right. That's right.
I do have one question in the chat. But when you live alone and have things that must get done, resting is not always an option. And that can be a conundrum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It can.
And if you live with somebody else, also,
And we
if
have to
they're not
clean up their
supportive,
mess. Yeah, then we have to clean up their mess, right?
right? And if they're not supportive, so where do you live?
Where
Are
do
you
I?
in the area? Yeah.
I am in Amherst. Actually, I'm in Pelham, but nobody knows where that is, so I say Amherst.
And Marianne, tell us about your offering at the senior center in Amherst.
Oh, we do a Monday tapping group at 2:30 every Monday at the Amherst Senior Center. It's just anybody who wants to come. You don't have to be a member of the senior center, and it's 2:30 to 3:30, and it's just a wonderful group, and you just never know who's going to show up. Except me, I'm there every time.
And Marianne,
And
can you just talk a little bit about one-on-one sessions that you offer? Is that something that for folks that aren't local, they could set up a Zoom meeting with you or meet with you online to do a session?
yes, there are some good things that came out of COVID, and one of them is I had an office, so didn't have an office anymore at COVID. I worked from home, and I found that working over Zoom with one-to-one with people works quite well, really quite well. So yeah, I do a lot of work on Zoom. Yeah. And what was the other part of your question about one-to-one? What I do is one-to-one sessions are usually an hour and a half sessions, and I'll offer a free session to anybody in this world for an hour and a half that wants to learn deeper about tapping and how to do it for yourself or with a practitioner. I'm setting up April tapping groups. So if people want to join or form a tapping group, that's possible. And is that kind of what you were wanting? Good. Okay. All right.
Your computer's responding, Nellie.
That's great. That's great.
And we do have a request from one of the attendees to join a tapping group.
All right, on the Monday one we could start a new tapping group in
It
April.
sounds like they want a new group.
Okay. Well. Yeah. If you'll just put us together, we'll figure that out.
So Marianne, thank you. This has been a really
You are
informative
so welcome.
session. And I'd also like to remind anybody watching that at the Lyme Disease Resource Center, we also offer resources for people who are stuck with some more practical questions of what do I do when I live alone? What kinds of help can I get? Or if you have family and you need questions answered about coping with family, coping with friends, we can support you, and we can also connect you with the more professional resources such as therapists and practitioners who can be supportive on your healing path. So Marianne is just one practitioner in our database and ability to connect you. And Marianne, I personally have been very grateful for your support and help over the years. And it's wonderful to have you once again presenting for us. Thank you so much for coming this evening.
You are so welcome.